evening, everyone, and welcome to the Mountain View.
There's a lot going on in the Mountain West, so let's get right to it.
One was just drafted, and another is about to test the waters. Two of the Mountain West best hoop stars are taking their game to the next level.
The NBA is a huge dream of mine, and as it is to a lot of people, and this is a chance to pursue that dream.
And it's week 2 of Decision 08. Does Randall Cunningham have what it takes to make the College Football Hall of Fame?
I'll go in however I can. Punter, kicker.
And why are Jim Boylan and Kyle Whittingham turning in their playbooks for menus?
It's hard work. I'll tell you what, it makes me appreciate my day job.
Those stories and more right here.
Right now on the Mountain View.
From the studios of the Mountain, with Natalie Vickers and Marius Payton. This is the Mountain View, presented by Dodge.
And if that's not enough, also Gary Patterson, Troy Calhoun, Tim Neverett, and Arnie Farron will join the show.
But we start the show with a player who's testing the waters of the NBA, BYU center Trent Playstead. The big guy decided to put his name in for the NBA draft, but here's the catch. He decided not to sign with an agent, so he will be able to return to BYU if things don't work out as he has planned. Trent Playstead now joins us from the campus cam in Provo. And Trent, what went into the decision to declare yourself for the NBA draft, and how big of a role did Coach Rose play?
There's a lot of factors when deciding, to go to the NBA draft or not that go into it. And, I think where I am right now academically was one thing. This is my 4th year at BYU that I'm just finishing up. And assuming all goes well this semester, I'll be 2 classes away from graduating with an econ degree. And Coach Rose was a huge influence in my decision-making process, and he's been so supportive in everything that I've done. And just the fact that the NBA is a huge dream of mine, and as it is to a lot of people, and this is a chance to pursue that dream, and hopefully it all goes well.
Now you're eligible to go to pre-draft camps. What camps do you have slated to attend right now?
A lot of those camps are kind of invitational camps and stuff like that, but I think it all gets kicked off with Orlando in the beginning of June, and that's an invitational camp, and there's a decision to be made whether to play there or not and stuff like that. So as of right now, I guess I don't have much to tell you other than the fact that I'm just excited about the opportunity.
Now, what are you doing to prepare for this opportunity?
Working like crazy. There's not much else to do except for to work on your weaknesses, work and improve your strengths even more, and just make sure that you're mentally and physically prepared as you need to be to handle this process.
Now, the date that looms is June 16th. If you've not signed with an agent, you can return to BYU. What are your guidelines to stay or go? Do you have do you have to be projected in the first round for you to take off?
That's a decision that's probably going to have to be made in June. Obviously, there's a lot of time between now and then, but those options don't really present themselves until then. And there's scenarios that I have to discuss with my wife, my family, and Coach Rose and the rest of the staff. So, I will weigh my options when that time comes, but right now I don't really think I have any definite framework in place.
Have you received any advice from your teammates? Because if you stay, the Cougars would be stacked next year. You guys could make some noise.
Absolutely. My teammates, I'm very fortunate to have great friends and great teammates at BYU, and they're 100% supportive of the decision that I've made, and they're behind me, and I'm really thankful for them.
Now, last season, Jason Smith, formerly of CSU, tested the draft waters and scored big. He's now playing with the NBA and the Sixers and playing well. How much motivation is that? I mean, you played against that guy.
Yeah, Jason's a great player, and he's actually a good friend of mine. So, there's nothing but positive, options for me right now. BYU is a great option. The NBA is a great option, and that's the kind of the attitude I'm taking into this whole process is, what do I have to lose? I've got great situations in front of me.
Now, when you were growing up with the dreams of playing in the league, what jersey did you wear, and who were the players you looked up to?
As far as jerseys are concerned, I think that I'll have to go with Tim Duncan, just because of the fact I'm from San Antonio, and I moved there in the 6th grade, and the Spurs were so good when I was there. But he's a great basketball player, and he's a great guy, more importantly, and that's why I like him.
Well, Trent Playstead, good luck to you, and we hope things work out with you, whatever decision you make.
Okay, thank you very much.
There are a ton of mock drafts already out there. This one on NBADraft.net has placed it going in the 2nd round behind J.R. Giddens of New Mexico. And those are the only two Mountain West players listed. So is it a good move for Plaisted? For her perspective, here's Women's Basketball Hall of Famer Andrea Lloyd.
I think Trent Plaisted declaring for the draft is a very interesting move and a very intriguing move, and possibly a quite a smart move by Trent Plaisted. I think it's interesting because I don't know that he's quite ready to play in the NBA or be drafted into the NBA. At 6'11", he's a very good player at the college level, but he will even tell you that he has areas he needs to improve in his game, his outside shooting, maybe ball handling, some of the things he's going to need to be able to do at the NBA level. But I think it's interesting because of the fact that now he gets a chance to go to some of the NBA camps and put himself up against some of the best talent in the nation. And I think that that's a great move for him going into a senior season. He can now decide, well, am I ready for this? Do I want to move on? Or maybe I come back to BYU and I'm going to be improved next year because I had this opportunity. Otherwise, he'd be sitting around playing pickup basketball at BYU, maybe not having a chance to play against guys that were this good. So a very, very interesting move by him. He doesn't have an agent. He'll have a chance to go to some of the camps and test himself, improve his game, see where he needs to improve his game, and then decide whether he wants to return to BYU.
Good news for Utah's Leilani Mitchell. She doesn't have to worry about the draft because she got drafted this week. Mitchell was picked in the second round by the WNBA's Phoenix Mercury. She was the 25th pick overall and the third Ute to play at the next level. And Leilani joins us now on the Utah campus, Cam. And Leilani, I know this must be a dream come true for you. What were your initial thoughts when you got the word that you were being drafted by the Phoenix Mercury?
Just excited. We were just watching with a couple of my roommates who are teammates, and we just, jumping around, screaming and cheering. It was just really exciting, and it was a great feeling.
Now, before the draft, did you know a lot about the Mercury, and what will it be like to have Diana Taurasi on the other end of your passes?
I remember watching them last year in their championship series. But, obviously they're the defending champs. They're a great team. They have two great guards, and Cappie Pondexter, she averages, over 20 points. I think both of them do. Diana Taurasi. So they have a great team, and, they like to play an up-tempo style, and so they're just looking for someone to push the ball. So hopefully I can, fit into that role.
Now, when did you realize that playing in the WNBA was a dream that was well within reach?
Well, some people have said, maybe you can make it to the next level, but it's always been a question of, my height. I'm only 5'5", so people, still, before the draft at the pre-draft camp, people were questioning, well, I talked to some of the coaches and they said, you're really small, but do you think you can do it? And I just said, yeah. People said that when I came to college too, and I think it turned out to be all right. So just, hearing things, I guess this year is when it really became a reality, just, hearing that people were coming to watch me play throughout the season. And then after we got done, I talked to Coach about some things, and we kind of, it all just kind of went from there.
Who are you looking forward to playing against in the WNBA?
Well, obviously Sue Bird is a great point guard, and, she can shoot and she pushes the ball. She's a great player, and so it'll be fun to, go up against her.
How do you think your 1 year at Utah helped you accomplish the goal of playing in the WNBA?
Well, I think the success we had as a team this year, really brought a lot of attention to the program, and so I think that helped me get some more looks. Our coaches are great, and they helped in my development, and I've gotten better in certain areas that I needed to work on, and I still have a lot of room for improvement, but the coaches have done a great job with me and helping me develop.
So what are your plans from here? When do you go to Phoenix? What about your workouts? What do the next few weeks hold for you?
Well, next Thursday I have to go to a rookie orientation in Chicago on the 17th, and then straight from there, that's for 2 days, straight from there to training camp, which starts on the 20th.
All right, I know you have a big family. How have they reacted to you now being able to play pro ball?
They were all really excited. All my brothers called yesterday, and my parents. I just had a lot of people supporting me, and they've always been there for me, and it's a great feeling, and it's nice to know that that they're proud of me and that they're there to support me.
Leilani, it has been a pleasure watching you play. Thanks for your time, and keep in touch with the Mountain.
All right, thank you.
Now, we're a bit surprised that these three didn't get drafted, Adrian Ross, Deion Marsh, and Hannah Zavik. Marsh has been invited to training camp with the Sacramento Monarchs. Ross and Zavik haven't announced any plans yet, but if the WNBA doesn't work out, they can always play overseas. Now, Tim Neverett told us a few weeks ago about Becky Hammond playing for Russia in the Olympics, and now it's official. Hammond signed with the Russian national team this week. She played pro ball in Russia last year, and that qualified her to get an international passport. The former CSU All-American is also starting her 10th year in the WNBA.
Now to football, and 3 Mountain West teams have their spring games tomorrow. TCU is one of those 3, and the head coach, Gary Patterson, joins us. Coach, now you lost a couple of your strongest defensive players in Chase Ortiz and Tommy Blake, of course. Who are you looking at to fill their shoes?
Well, a guy last year that really came along at the defensive end position was Matt Panfield. Also, Jerry Hughes is a guy that really has a lot of speed, was a tailback in high school that we converted. You know, he kind of played in the shadow of both those guys. So both those guys will have a tremendous chance of turning the corner as far as playing defensive end and being our starters.
Of course, going into the new season, you have some new players added to the D. You signed a 6'2", 190-pound cornerback, Jason Teague. What do you like in him?
Well, he was an LSU signee out of high school, played in junior college. He's a guy that has great speed. Anymore with everybody playing with bigger wide receivers, we felt like we needed to go out and get a young player that actually would have that height and the speed. And he's a 3-for-3 player, so it really we gain closer to a freshman than we do a junior college transfer. So we're excited about him being here in June.
You expect him to get right in the action?
Well, I think he'll have a chance. Obviously, I always think of recruits as paper tigers. So until they come and show what they can do. But outside of that, he's got a tremendous chance, along with Bud Patterson, a high school player out of Bastrop, Louisiana.
All right, that was on your defensive side. On your offense, you have leaders back in quarterback Andy Dalton and running back Aaron Brown. How much will having that type of leadership back have an effect on your team this season?
Well, really, besides a couple wide receivers, we about have the whole offensive group back, including I think we lost one offensive lineman. With the addition of Marquise Parker, the junior college wide receiver, coming in here in June, I think will give us an opportunity to build forward. Really, the offense has had a great last week of spring, and we're hoping that carries forward when we start two-a-days.
So, out of all your recruits, who do you think may be the best, someone to look out for your fans?
Well, for us, looking at it, Jeremy Coleman, a defensive lineman out of Houston, has a chance to give us depth at that position, even though we have 3 seniors, because of his strength and his speed that he can play with. We talked about Jason Teague and Bud Patterson at the corner position. At linebacker, we have a young man in we feel like has got a chance to be a really good player, along with the receivers we talked about, and Zach Roth, our big offensive tackle, which was an all Jayhawk JUCO conference player out of Kansas.
All right, and let's talk about your schedule a bit. It came out at the beginning of the month. Your team plays 11 straight games before an open date. What are your thoughts on how all that stacked up?
Well, I never worry about things I don't have control over. I like coming out against a good team like New Mexico to start the season. The last time we won a conference title, we played straight through, and we were done on November 13th. I think the key to playing 11 or 12 straight games is to stay healthy. If you can do that, then I think it's a positive. If you don't, then it's hard to catch up.
That's right. Coach Gary Patterson, thank you so much for joining us, and we will be watching tomorrow.
Thanks.
Spring football drills might be the most important this year at Air Force. 14 starters are gone, including Chad Hall and Sean Carney. Let's bring in Coach Troy Calhoun. And Coach, some huge shoes to fill in Colorado Springs. How have the drills gone thus far?
Really quite well, Marius, and yet they have to. You mentioned the number of guys we've lost. I like to look more so at the number of guys that we have returning. It's 3 returning starters on offense and 5 on defense. So, we're a team right now that doesn't have a whole lot of experience in terms of actual game day experience, and so you try and do everything you can as a coach to accelerate that growth and that learning process. And we've made very good strides this spring, and we wrap up tomorrow, and yet what we have to do when we return in August, we're going to continue to have to make pretty significant improvement.
Coach, what did you hope to accomplish in spring drills, and did you knock those goals out?
Well, the thing you want to see is you just want to find out, especially at spots where guys haven't played a whole lot, if we have some guys that are ready for the kind of responsibility that naturally falls on their shoulders for their respective positions once you get into the season. And we've seen that. I think we have good competition at some spots, which you certainly like as a coach, and yet at the same time, you want to see somebody truly emerge or really stand out at each one of the various spots.
Are there any concerns that you have right now?
Oh, I think as a coach, yeah, I do. And yet at the same time, it's not like you're tossing and turning and worrying at nights either. I mean, I love the way our guys work. And it's been that way really since this team first started coming together, starting there in January. And I think every single season is a different one. And thus I think you have to be willing to start anew. And these kids have certainly done that. And what it is, especially for those younger guys, I've really been pleased with the guys that'll be sophomores next year. I think we've got a good group there, and what I really look forward to is working with those guys that are presently high school seniors.
Now tomorrow is the spring game for the Falcons. In a perfect world, what are you hoping to see?
Well, I want to see us play a lot of football. And when I say that, it sounds initially, well, that's quite obvious. I just want to see us work through a number of different specific situations. Offensively, I want to see us be able to handle the ball extremely well. And defensively, I want to see us to be able to change our different alignments, especially in terms of being able to go from a three-man front to a four-man front. And then in the kicking game, what we've done this spring, we've been very thorough in all aspects of our special teams, and we're going to test each one of those areas tomorrow afternoon.
Now, you have a few grad assistants helping the program this season. How are they doing with the transition from playing to coaching?
They're doing quite well, and that's not a surprise. Both Sean and Drew have been quite helpful this spring. They're both going to be excellent, especially for our incoming freshmen, to have guys that have recently graduated, which those two guys will do here in the end of May, and just to have two guys that you can lean on, guys that have enormous fortitude, guys that love football, and guys that are going to be great teachers of the game, not only just to the sport, but more importantly, even beyond that, for what they'll do from a leadership standpoint to influence these young men.
Have to ask you about your sophomore season as the coach. How much pressure is on your shoulders to repeat the performance of last season, or is that just the challenge of coaching?
That's part of coaching, and I think what you have to do, and no matter what role it is, I think you have to be able to change and realize that each year, again, is completely something different. And so you just learn that in this occupation, that no 2 years, not even any 2 games are going to be exactly the same. You have a brand new team. 4 years from now, even though in 2011 we'll have recruited every single one of those young men and been in their homes and cultivated 3 years worth of time spent with them from a relationship standpoint, it's still going to be a new season that year too.
All right, Troy Calhoun, good luck tomorrow, and thanks for joining us.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
At Wyoming, the biggest battle is at quarterback. Carson Sween is trying to bounce back from a shaky sophomore season, throwing 17 interceptions. The Cowboys brought in a new offensive coordinator as well as a JUCO transfer to compete with Karsten.
What I want to get out of this spring is to seal my spot. This is my team, and last year didn't go so well. So I want to show this spring that I can be a different quarterback than I was last year.
Wide, 2-10 razors.
The biggest things that I want to get out of this spring is being efficient with Coach Cole's offense, knowing how to run everything.
Okay, baby, right there. That's it. Good catch, Dante.
I don't think the Mountain West has seen what I can do, what I did in high school. I haven't been able to transfer it, and I think that Coach Cole's offense is very similar.
Chris, I'll get you. I wasn't thinking you were going to convert it.
There he is. I'm just really excited about it. I think the competition is good. It's going to push me. It's nothing you can really worry about. Either you're going to be better or you're not.
That's all a part of our great show, Reaching the Peak. It's the behind-the-scenes access look with Joe Glenn and the Cowboys that you won't get anywhere else. The show debuts this Wednesday at 7:30 p.m., and there's a new episode every Wednesday night, and it goes right through June. Tim Neverett is here to keep that football talk going. Let's talk Wyoming. They just signed a 3-game series with Texas. What does each school get out of this?
Well, they get a lot out of this, actually. I think Wyoming probably gets more. First of all, they get the economic impact because in 2009, Texas goes to Laramie first in this 3-game series. It's a 2-for-1. Normally in a 2-for-1, the team that gets the 1, in this case Wyoming, would have to go to the other team's place first, in this case Austin, Texas. Not happening that way. It's a little bit odd, but odd in a good way for Wyoming. They'll have Texas as their guest first, then they'll return the game the following year, and what they're going to do financially is exchange the guarantees for the first 2 years of the contract. It'll be somewhere in the neighborhood of $250,000 a game. Now, the kicker is this. Wyoming in the third game gets a guarantee to go to Austin of $900,000. So it's a pretty good payday for Wyoming. They get a lot out of that. Is that their biggest payday for one game? Not even close. 2002, when Tennessee had the game bought back, the game that they owed the Cowboys back up in Laramie, a promoter bought it back, put it in Nashville, and paid Wyoming $2 million for one football game. So that's pretty good. Now, not what they're getting with Toledo. They've added Toledo with a 1-1 for 2010 and 2012. That was also announced this week. So that's the kind of money that teams can get in terms of guarantees in college football.
Joe Glenn, a lot of rooting and tooting with that, I do say.
Well, and Tom Berman, the athletic director, got the deal done, and it was such an impressive deal that Craig Thompson, the commissioner of the Mountain West, called him and said, this could be one of the biggest home games at a Mountain West venue ever.
Excellent. He said thank you, too, I'm sure. In there.
I think so.
Let's talk about the quarterback race. Who's winning that race up in Laramie?
That's been the big position battle. Karsten Sween right now is the #1 quarterback heading into Saturday's scrimmage at War Memorial Stadium. He is #1. Ian Hetrick is #2. Surprisingly, at this point in time, junior college transfer Dax Crum is #3 on the list, and Clint Stutzreim is #4 on the list. But look for Crum to ascend up the depth chart the more familiar he gets with the offense. Keep in mind that Hetrick and Sween have been in that program at least for a while. It's a new offense under Bob Cole, but still I would look for Crum to still climb up the depth chart, especially if he has a good scrimmage tomorrow.
Next up, let's talk a little Lobos. Rodney Ferguson missed New Mexico's bowl game due to academics. Now his senior year might be in jeopardy as well, and Rocky Long addressed it this week. Let's take a listen in.
I'm not worried because it doesn't do me any good to worry. I mean, the kid's 21. I mean, he might even be 22 right now. He's smart enough and mature enough to know what's ahead of him. That's his responsibility. I mean, we check classes and we make sure they're going to school and we give them all the help we can with tutors and all that stuff. But guess what? We don't read the book for them. We don't write their papers, and we don't take the tests. That's their responsibility.
Tim, what is going on there?
Head coach tough love right there. But he's right. Rocky Long is exactly right. Rodney Ferguson, ever since the reality hit him that he couldn't play in the bowl game. And here's a guy who gave him 1,177 yards and 13 touchdowns last year. He's out of the lineup. They want him back. He's got one more year of eligibility. For the last several months, he's been really working hard at getting back on the correct academic track. And he expects that he'll be there in the fall. I think Rocky Long's playing a little coy right now. I think he understands that Rodney Ferguson is more than likely going to be carrying the rock for the Lobos in the fall.
Excellent. That's what you do. Put it on their shoulders. He's the only one that's in control there. Exactly. Let's talk a little Utes information. Brent Castile and Matt Asiata are back for this next season, but are they 100%, Tim?
I think they are, and from what I'm hearing, they are. The one thing about Castile, the senior wide receiver, is he's going to be a big part of that Utah offense. They missed him last year. He got hurt in the Air Force game early in the year, a game that Air Force would win at Utah. And again, they lose a weapon offensively. Matt Asiata, they got by without him last year. I think he brings a lot to the table as well. But keep in mind, out of sight, out of mind is usually the case in college football, especially if you're injured early in the year. They both rehab their injuries. And Kyle Whittingham has them on the no-touch list. Don't touch these guys in spring football. He's also added quarterback Brian Johnson, who's battled injuries over his career, to the no-touch list, and basically has said no contact until it's for real in the fall. They want to protect those guys. They're valuable weapons. I like Utah. I like what they have coming back, and I think those two guys are going to add to their offense.
Tim Neverett, always great stuff. Thank you so much for coming in and being with us.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Let's get to our first break. Then we go back in time with Utah legend Arnie Farron. The honors are still rolling in 60 years after he played for the Utes. In baseball, Tony Gwynn had the hottest team in the conference, but now the Aztecs have hit a tough patch. Mark Knutson tells us why. And we go back in time with Randall Cunningham. He's a pastor now, but he's also on the verge of a very nice football honor.
I'm excited, so I'll go in however I can. Punter, kicker. I can't go in as a coach, of course.
Congrats to Xavier Scruggs of UNLV's co-player of the week in baseball. Scruggs hit .500 last week with 2 homers and 9 RBI. The big man is leading the league in batting average, hits, homers, and pretty much every other offensive category. Now his teammates need to give him some help.
He's done as much as he can do to put the team on his back offensively and try to carry him. But we do need somebody to step it up, and that's going to come big. We're fighting really hard to find a consistent DH right now, and we've run a lot of guys in and out of there and trying to play some matchups to get some production out of that spot and make it function. But nevertheless, we've been pretty good offensively. We got to have a little bit better timely hitting and have some guys hit and drive in some runs in the clutch. But other than that, we've played really well offensively, and I think that's why X has managed to do what he's done so far this season.
On to the Horned Frogs and TCU. They're slowly turning things around. Traditionally, they've been a great offensive ball club, but right now, their bets are at the bottom of the conference when you check out the stats. But TCU senior Clint Arnold tells us not to worry.
I think things are definitely turning around. You know, I'm not sure if I can really put my finger on it. You know, hitting's such a contagious thing. You know, when it seems like when a couple guys start swinging it well, the whole team kind of follows. You know, I think that's kind of what's happened lately. We started off slow, and everybody, that was contagious as well. You know, a couple guys were struggling, guys that normally hit, and I think the rest of the team kind of followed there. So we started a little bit slow, but we're turning around for sure.
And what do you know, our first baseball game of the year tomorrow on the Mountain has those 2 teams, TCU and UNLV, showing up. Here's our Mountain analyst, former big leaguer Mark Knutson joining us. And let's talk about Xavier Scruggs first of all. What a year he is having.
Well, we saw him play last year. He's playing a great third base and hitting the ball, but he's taken it up a notch this year. Player of the week for the 3rd time this week, co-player of the week, 3rd time he's been honored. He's hitting 433 for the year, hit 500 last week. No errors on the season, 8 home runs, 36 RBIs. I mean, he's in the top 12 in 5 national categories, so he's having one heck of a season.
All right, and let's talk about for TCU, Chris Ellington. What
he's
about
the guy that shared player of the week honors this week for UNLV. A different situation for him. He was not a regular with TCU last year. He's one of the guys being counted on to fill in for the 12 guys that left that program at the end of last season. So he's off to a great start. Hit 400 for the week, was co-player of the week, and interesting to see those 2 guys collide tomorrow.
You know, let's look at the conference race, and San Diego State still on top, but Tony Gwynn's team is struggling a bit lately, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. Certainly they were in pretty good position going into last week. Then they lose 2 out of 3 to New Mexico at home and have to win in extra innings in the last day to salvage that 1 out of 3. So they're struggling a little bit. They're going to count on their pitching to try to right the ship against Utah this weekend. So we'll see what they can do, but it's really going to be a dogfight.
So looking at the conference as a whole, 4 teams in 2nd place, tied for 2nd place. Who do you think is going to be there in the end?
Well, it's going to be a lot of fun no matter what happens. But I think what you're going to see, TCU will be there because TCU, they were the preseason favorite for a reason. They're undefeated in the midweek game, so they've got some young kids that are just learning how to play. They'll get going a little bit. But New Mexico has really come on strong. They have the most wins of any team in the conference right now with 21. Just took 2 out of 3 in San Diego, so they're brimming with confidence. So it's going to be a great fight down the stretch.
All right, Mark Knutson, our Mountain analyst. We'll see lots more of you tomorrow. Thank you for joining us. And that's right. Our pregame live begins at 12:30. We'll order in lunch, Marius. No worries there. Then it's the Rebels and the Horned Frogs live from Fort Worth. And as always, we'll wrap up the day at 11 o'clock with all the day's highlights and that show on the Mountain Cap.
Danny Manning, Charles Barkley, Billy Packer, Dick Vitale, all among the biggest names in their sport, and all were elected this week to the College Basketball Hall of Fame. And Arnie Farron of Utah is right there with them. The former Ute joins us from Salt Lake City. Arnie, that's a pretty good group to be a part of. What does this honor mean to you?
I don't believe that I've ever had an honor that was more important. Part of that is as you get older, the things that happen to you become more precious. And this certainly is precious for me.
Arnie, it was a long time coming. What were your emotions when you got the word?
One of the things I learned as you get more mature, be sure you answer all of your phone calls.
Well, you led Utah to the NCAA title in 1944 as a freshman. What do you remember about those days?
I remember that we're the only team that started 4 freshmen that ever won the NCAA championship. I remember how naive we were. Going to New York City, only 2 of the players and coaches had ever been to the big city. And to play in Madison Square Garden with 15,000 people was a little change from playing in the desert gym in front of 2,000. So it was very exciting for us. We were wide-eyed. We had an opportunity that was unusual to play in the NCAA tournament because we elected to play in the NIT. We lost in that tournament. And because of an accident to the Arkansas team, we got a re-invite. So it made a very special story to have the second chance to go back to New York, play in the tournament, and win it.
Then 3 years later, your team wins the NIT. Was that even bigger than winning the NCAA?
You know, I don't know. In our minds, I think the NCAA tournament overwhelmed us. Playing in the NIT in 1947, I thought we were a pretty good basketball team and that we probably could compete. And it was a good win for us because I suspect that Kentucky was the best basketball team in the country that year. They ended up being the Olympic team. They ended up also, 5 of them joined the NBA as a team in Indianapolis. So to beat them was really more important, I guess, in the sense that we'd accomplished more beating that great team.
Arnie, how much has the game changed since you laced them up?
Well, somebody asked me that question the other day saying, could you play now? And I explained to them that I don't know whether I could now, but I could then, that the game has changed significantly. Our coach, we've been reading about it because of this honor. Players could not go to the bench during timeouts to talk to the coach. Our coach's philosophy on shooting was that you must be on balance, 2 feet squared, facing the basket before you could shoot it. I imagine he's rolling over in his grave when he sees some of the things the players are doing today.
I know you live in Salt Lake and you keep up with the Utes. What do you think of new coach Jim Boylan?
I'm a very big fan of Jim Boylan's. I'm a fan of his coaching technique, but more than that, I'm a fan of his involvement with his players for educational purposes, as well as his involvement in the community for his team. I think he's a great coach, and I think he's going to be very successful here.
Arnie, the Hall of Fame induction ceremony is in November. Have you started to think about your speech?
Well, with Dick Vitale and Charles Barkley, I'm sure my speech will be very quiet and small.
All right, Arnie Farron, a true Utah legend. Congratulations, and thanks so much for joining us.
You bet. Thank you.
More basketball still to come on the Mountain View. The question will answer, what did John Calipari do wrong in the NCAA championship game? Our coaches Marty Fletcher and Larry Mangino will take a closer look. Plus, we will sit down with Randall Cunningham. Bet you didn't know he was a great punter in college, and it might even make him make the Hall of Fame.
Now to talk some hoops, and now that basketball season is over, many wonder, what do the coaches do? So we decided to bring in our resident coaches to talk about the offseason. We have Marty Fletcher and Larry Mangino. And let's start with you, Marty. What is the offseason like for coaches? I mean, I'm sure recruiting is one of the main issues right now.
Well, you're right on the money. First of all, there's no offseason. It's become 365 days a year, and it's recruiting, recruiting, recruiting. Now, we're just coming off the Final Four where there's a dead period, but in the recruiting process, you not not only recruiting for this year, you're recruiting for the future. So you have junior recruiting. You have a period in November where you want to try to sign the best players in the junior class this year. That period starts like November 8th or 9th, goes for a week. You also have the spring period, which they're just getting into right now. That lasts a little longer, maybe 5 weeks. By May 15th, normally all the signing is done. So it's a full year process. It's not like football. Football has a national signing date, and 99% of the players sign on that day. So it's year round. Also, coaches, while they're doing the recruiting, they also start their tour, their booster tour, particularly in May, where they'll go all over the state or wherever their university is located, and they'll talk to their boosters. They do get a little golf in on those booster runs, but believe me, it's not like the old days, after basketball's over, you take 4 months off. No, they're working extremely hard. There's no vacation when you're a college basketball coach. Believe me when I tell you that.
So, Larry, let's talk about this. You got the recruiting, you got your booster tour. When do you find time for off-season workouts? Because I know a lot of schools do that. And how about foreign players like a Jonathan Tavanari? I know he has hopes of going to play for Brazil in the Olympics.
Well, one of the key things, you talk about how are you going to improve your team? Recruiting, definitely. That's your key question. Who is going to be in your program? Who are the pieces of clay that you're going to mold to win a championship, get to the NCAA tournament? Then once they're in, you have to improve the players that are with your program now. That's a key. Are they improving physically? Is their skill level getting higher? So we're talking about time in the weight room. Some of these kids, Lee Kamard has to put on maybe 10 pounds. He doesn't have to become Hulk Hogan, but maybe 10 pounds. That takes time. It takes 6-8 months. Karl Malone, you got to get bigger and bigger. You got to work hard. Conditioning. Linskins from Wyoming has to get in better shape. So each of these players has a conditioning, body-changing types summer coming up, spring and summer. Then their skill level has to come up, and that is dictated by the coach. We know that you're not allowed to be with your team all the time, but you can certainly give them programs that they can accomplish. They can work out. If you and I work out together, the chances are we're going to make each other better. So that's what they're looking for. Over the summer, where are you going to be? Are you on campus taking summer classes? If you are going to be in the gym some of the time. You're not studying all the time, so you're going to get a good hour-and-a-half workout in to work on your shooting, your dribbling, and so forth, so that you can get better. And then the last piece would be, do you have the opportunity to play, whether it be in a sanctioned summer league, obviously an Olympic team with one of these other groups that we're talking about. So the more you can play, improve your body, and improve your skill, that's going to show and pay benefits for your team the following year.
Coach Fletcher, how about Tim Miles from CSU? He had a team that had a lot of freshmen, a lot of walk-ons. What's he doing right now?
Well, certainly the lifeline of college athletics, we go back to the recruiting piece. This is something that he and his staff have been working since day one. They knew they would not have a lot of personnel this year, so they spent a lot of time recruiting underclassmen, junior college ranks. So you have to improve your team with improved talent. We know Coach Miles is a terrific coach. You don't go on the road and beat Wisconsin. You don't go on the road and beat Marquette. So it's all about putting the missing pieces together, and that's a long process. It's not a quick fix. It's a process, and that's what they're doing right now as we speak. Of course, when you talk about summer, you have the summer camps. You go to the recruiting places where you watch players, and so their calendar is full. As I mentioned, not a lot of time to have vacation. When they do go on vacation, it's a working vacation. They're still thinking recruiting. You think recruiting 24 hours a day, 365 days a year.
Well, I'm going to throw a curveball at you, Larry. How about UNLV women's team? They don't have a coach. So what's going on there right now?
Well, they're the players, if they're smart, okay? There's no leadership per se, but they know that there's a new coach coming in. That coach is going to have expectations. We know the administration is going to make a good decision there. So the expectations are going to be high, just like it is on the men's side. So those players had better be working on their game. Their skill level has got to come up so that they cut down their turnovers as a team, and that is definitely related to your ball handling skills, passing, and so forth. So they better be playing together. If they're just hanging out at the slots on the strip, they're making a big-time mistake because somebody's coming there soon to get that program going.
All right, got to ask you a question about the NCAA championship game, Memphis and Kansas. We've discussed it. Coach, you're kind of passionate about what happened towards the end of the game. What did John Calipari do wrong?
Well, he hadn't done a whole lot of things wrong, winning 38 games, the most in the history of college basketball. Now, he's taken a lot of shots for not fouling the last 10 seconds of the basketball game. We've talked to many, many coaches that don't foul in that situation. I think if you talk to Coach Calipari, he'd be telling himself, why didn't I call a timeout after Derrick Rose made that free throw to put him up 3 with about 10 seconds to go? At that particular time, you could have defined your defense a little more, switch on all ball screens, switch everything, don't give a wide open shot. Now, what you saw was a situation where, in my opinion, you should foul. I've been in that situation before, and I've gone ahead and fouled. You're talking about Kansas, a team that is terrific. You're talking about teams that make plays. They got big-time playmakers, and so you don't wait and see and hope that shot doesn't go in. I think you foul and put them on the foul line. Hindsight is always 20/20. It's a tough call, but probably where Coach Calipari made the biggest mistake in his own mind is he didn't call the timeout after they made the free throw, because he had timeouts to burn.
Well, I agree 100%. And the key is, when we were coaching, we'd discuss these things in the fall. Every year this situation came up, we'd have this discussion. Do we foul? At what point? Is there 10 seconds left? Do we foul? Is there 5 seconds? At what point is it a mandatory foul? And then your team knows that. You practice those end-of-game situations enough so that even if you don't have a timeout, your team knows, Coach, we practice it in October and November. We had these little mini scrimmages, so we knew that we're going to foul at this point in this situation. We are going to then box out on the free throw so that we don't give up the second shot, regardless of size. We had that problem at Air Force sometimes, that we'd say if we foul, they may have a distinct size advantage. They may get the offensive rebound. But I think big mistake, costing the game.
It is always a pleasure talking hoops with the coaches. Larry and Marty, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And now it's on to Decision 08, but it isn't Obama and Hillary. It is the College Football Hall of Fame. They'll announce their new class on May the 2nd, and every week we're taking a look at one of the Mountain West nominees. Last week it was Jay Novacek of Wyoming. Today it's Randall Cunningham, who's gone from punter to pastor, and he told our Molly Sullivan that football helped prepare him for life.
Decision 08, the College Football Hall of Fame.
Preparation of life itself, starting off in Pop Warner, high school football, boys club football, college, NFL. It was all a character builder, and everyone growing up, we're immature, we're wet behind the ears, we have no clue what we're doing with our lives, we're still trying to figure out who we are. But in the meantime, God is constructing us like he's doing a beautiful monument. And now I stand behind a pulpit, kind of the same person, battling all the time, making sure that I'm successful. So this transformation has caused me to say, thank you, Lord, take over, do what you have to do.
Now, everyone knows you as an incredible quarterback, but you're being recognized for your punting.
To me, being on the ballot for the College Football Hall of Fame is an honor, first of all. And then to know that when I was playing with the NCAA, I was an All-American punter. And then I was an all-West quarterback, but my accolades, even though Doug Flutie, John Elway, and myself were the only guys who threw for over 2,500 yards in 3 consecutive seasons, that was huge back then. But then I got in as a punter, so that was the one thing that I felt, you know what, maybe I really get a shot in the NFL because I'm a punter too now, guys. Remember, I'm a punter too. And because I was Kodak All-American punter, I think they really did look at me in the NFL, but I'm excited. So I'll go in however I can. Punter, kicker. I can't go in as a coach, of course.
What's your most memorable moment as a Rebel? Is there something that sticks out?
I have 3 of them. The most important one was when we won the California Bowl as a team, because that was a thing of unity.
First time, right?
Yes, and I had gone to the championship in high school. We lost to Long Beach Pauley, who everybody loses to, so that doesn't make a difference. But we won in college. We went 16-2 in the NFL. But the number one memorable moment was when we actually won that California Bowl, and our coach was just in love with his players. The number 2 was when we lost against SMU at home, our last game of the season. I will always remember that game because even though we were defeated, it really proved that we never quit and we never gave up. We played a team that was better than us. And the final one, the third one, was when they retired my college jersey at UNLV, my last season. I was like, I didn't even understand it back then. You know, they still haven't retired my high school jersey, but that was number 3.
Now, after leading the Rebels to their first ever bowl victory in '84, you left for the NFL without graduating. But 20 years later, you re-enrolled, ultimately scoring a degree. So why was that important to you?
The truth is, I never planned on graduating from college. Mama said graduate, but I had 3 examples of my brothers who didn't graduate, so I was kind of following in their footsteps. There was a lady and a man who came to me, Chuck Davidson Sr., and another lady named Janice Henry, and they said, you should go back and get your degree. And I didn't ask him about a degree. I wasn't worried about it. You know, I'm an entrepreneur now, I'm a pastor. You know, I'm not going to get a degree and go out and get a job. I know what my calling is. But they say, we want you to consider being a coach at UNLV. I said, I'm teaching a Bible study. I don't know if I can do that. But because, you know, and my wife said, go do it. It'd be good for the kids. So I said, okay. And so then I went and, you know, got that taken care of and walked down the aisle, and it was, wow, I graduated from college.
How did your time on the playing field help prepare you for where you are today?
When you truly surrender your life to God, a lot of people say, oh, I believe in God, I believe in God. But when you really surrender to God, that means you not only trust Him, but you actually rely on Him. And when I get up in the morning, I say, Lord, I surrender. Lead me, guide me, take me where you want me to go. I'm your vessel, I belong to you. My life is no longer mine, it belongs to you. And that's what makes it easier, because if there are days that are frustrating, like Yolanda said, I can handle it.
Still ahead on the show, Jim Boylan and Kyle Whittingham. They're doing some special service, and they're doing it for a great cause. This is the Mountain View, presented by Dodge.
Tuesday night in Denver, a new class went into the Colorado Sports Hall of Fame, and among those inductees were Fisher DeBerry. In 27 seasons, he guided the Falcons to 17 winning years, 3 conference titles, and a dozen bowl appearances. DeBerry is the winningest coach in Service Academy history, and his Falcons won the Commander-in-Chief's trophy in an amazing 14 times.
To be recognized with the class that's coming in that is being inducted tonight, to think that my name is associated with Dow Fistewall and Peter Lacroix and you know, people like that, you know, is awesome. And but to know who all are in the you know, the Hall of Fame here in Colorado is a very humbling experience, and one that I know that we'll cherish forever and ever.
Have some news and notes to report, and this first one, unfortunately, Tony Gwynn Jr. goes to the Brewers DL with a bad hamstring. Heidi Vanderveer is leaving San Diego State for the head coaching job at Occidental College. And Katie Coronado of New Mexico is ranked 5th in the nation in the javelin. Her Lobo team is 24th in the new coaches poll.
The biggest game on San Diego State's football schedule is September 6th at Notre Dame. Of course, the Irish sell out every game, but there are some tickets available for Aztec students. 500 tickets to be exact, and they will go on sale Monday at 9 a.m. Go to the Aztec ticket office at Qualcomm Stadium. You need a valid student ID, and the cost is $65 a ticket. You can only buy one per person. The window opens at 5 o'clock, but I doubt these will last that long.
This is what I'm good at, waiting tables.
This is hard work. I'll tell you what, it makes me appreciate my day job.
You coaches were hard at work this past weekend, all for a good cause. They joined Utah Jazz players and head coach Jerry Sloan as celebrity waiters, helping raise big tips for charities like Community Nursing Services and Navajo Santa. The theme of the night was the 70s disco. See if you can pick out the famous faces behind the big hair. Sammy Lionball takes us inside the party.
I was born in the late 80s, but I watched the movies before I came, so I got prepared. I did my homework.
I don't know anything about the 70s. The only person on our team is Matt Harpering that knows about the 70s.
Those clothes are actually in his closet. He didn't buy those. Those are leftovers. And Coach Sloan wore that to the last game. Don't tell him I said that, though.
My wife Tammy bought this about 2 weeks ago.
Really? Brand new?
Now it looks nice, doesn't it?
Sure. Are we going to see
it? She paid $20 for it.
You are totally representing tonight.
Representing the Utes, got the Ute tie, got the red tuxedo from Gary White from Formal Wear up there in Bountiful. What more can you ask for?
I dig your dance coming in here. That was good.
Yeah, I was a sprinkler. My wife always gives me a hard time. I do all my 80s dances, the sprinkler, the flight attendant, all that kind of stuff.
There is something about 70s music that makes people want to dance, and the big job here tonight is to score big tips any way they can.
This has been tough. A lot of contact in the paint here. I like it. A lot of bumping, grinding. You can't cut through the lane here without getting hit. It's pretty good.
59, 60, woo! Go Anderson! Woo!
No, I'm not doing push-ups with Coach Witt. He'll kill me.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I'm sure.
I make my tips the old-fashioned way. Just a great service, very prompt, very organized, very thorough.
Have you ever waited tables before?
Yeah, my parents owned a restaurant for 30 years.
Oh.
So I grew up in the restaurant business, so I'm a little rusty, but I'm getting it back. I'm just a big fan of Coach Sloan and known him for a long time and just want to support him and his charity, and he supported me and my program, and I really appreciate it.
Great event, great cause, happy to help out.
I cannot believe he broke out the sprinkler.
That was awesome.
He should have got the grave digger going.
Grave digger, and then the grocery store when you go and put it in your cart. That's the rest for our show. The show is now over on such a bright note. Thank you for joining another edition of The Mountain View presented by Dodge. That's Natalie Vickers. I'm Marius Payton. And as always, we hope you enjoyed your view from the mountain.
more. That only did it. It's tight. It's hard to change that. Be more patient on your board. You're too quick. And really, here, pull it in. That. Okay, don't get that lean. When you're coming out, you still have your hips back. Okay? I'm like, go home and take Advil sinus or Tylenol sinus. No. Jacob didn't give me that. I don't think so. He has a different attitude. Yeah. Okay, you're just. Gotta have your balance on the board. Oh. You need to see your toes kick. You didn't see that. Be patient. Okay, you're waiting, you're trying to wait, but we're just real slow and big in our pipe, okay? Outboard, that's how you're gonna land, okay? That's why you're gonna land like that.
Good, Eli, now point your toes.
See your toes kick. Keep your head right there. Wait, wait. Nope. Don't let your legs drop, Randy. Wasn't even a tuck. I didn't count. You weren't even in a tuck. There, just a little far. That's the right kick setup. We're just a hair back, but beautiful lineup. See? Better. Okay. She could have seen it that time. You could have looked for your toes that time. You gotta kick your toes here, Steve. Look. We have 5 of these.